Hey guys, tonight we embark on a gentle exploration, a quiet journey into one of our most misunderstood emotions. Imagine for a moment a still pool of water, your inner calm. Suddenly, a tiny pebble drops, almost unnoticed, and the first faintest ripple begins to spread. That's how anger often arrives, not as a roaring flame, but as a subtle shift, a tightening in your chest perhaps, a warmth that creeps up your neck, a thought that hooks you just a little. It's a soft reminder that it's okay to feel these waves of emotion, and tonight we'll explore them with kindness, especially this powerful current we call anger, and what it might be gently trying to tell you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to see where you're joining from tonight, so please feel free to share your city or country and your local time in the comments below. It's always so nice to know we're all in this quiet space together, from different corners of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. That first whisper of anger, it's often so quiet, isn't it? You might be going about your day, perhaps you're interacting with someone, or maybe you're just alone with your thoughts, and then something shifts. It's like the air pressure changes in the room of your mind, almost imperceptibly. This is where our journey begins, in this space of subtle awareness, learning to tune our senses to the very earliest signs that anger is stirring within you. Think of it as becoming a detective of your own inner landscape, looking for the most delicate clues. Sometimes the first sign is purely physical. You might notice a faint clenching in your jaw, so slight you'd usually miss it. Or perhaps your shoulders tense up just a fraction, a barely perceptible armoring against something unseen. For some, it's a quickening of the breath. Not a gasp, but just a subtle shortening, a little less depth in each inhalation. You might feel a fleeting warmth rise in your face or your ears, a tiny flush that comes and goes like a blush. It could be a strange little flutter in your stomach, or a sudden inexplicable restlessness in your hands or feet, a need to fidget or move. These are the body's first murmurs, the initial physiological responses that tell you something is drawing your energy, something is asking for your attention. It's perfectly natural to feel these subtle shifts. Our bodies are incredibly wise and are constantly communicating with us, even if we've learned to tune out their softer signals. Then there are the mental whispers. It might be a single thought that flashes through your mind, almost too quick to catch. A critical thought about yourself or someone else. A sudden replay of an old memory that carries a little sting. Or maybe it's a fleeting sense of impatience, like you're suddenly in a hurry even if there's no reason to be. You might find your focus narrows, just for a moment, fixating on something small that seems irritating or out of place. It's like your mind's eye zooms in the periphery, the broader, calmer view fades a little. These mental cues are like the first few notes of a song, hinting at the melody to come. Consider, if you feel comfortable doing so, just for a moment, can you recall a time recently when anger, even mild irritation, crept up on you? Don't dwell on the full-blown emotion, but try to trace it back. What was the very first sign, the tiniest clue looking back now from this calm space? Was it a feeling in your body? A fleeting thought? A change in your perception of your surroundings? There's no right or wrong answer here, just a gentle noticing. This practice of gentle recall can be a surprisingly powerful tool in understanding your own unique emotional patterns. One of the core insights about anger, especially its initial arrival, is that it often starts as a kind of energetic activation. Think of it as your system going on low alert. Before it even has a name, before you consciously label it anger, your body and mind are already responding to a perceived disturbance or a potential challenge. This isn't inherently bad or negative. It's a fundamental part of our human design, a system built to help us navigate the world. The key is that these initial signals are just that, signals. They are not commands to act, nor are they the full story. They are simply an invitation to pay a little more attention, to tune in with curiosity. It's so human to overlook these first whispers, especially when life is busy or loud, or when we've been conditioned to believe that anger itself is a bad emotion to be avoided. Many of us walk around with a baseline level of tension or distraction that makes it hard to notice these more delicate internal shifts. But learning to recognize these early signs is like learning to read the weather forecast for your own emotional climate. When you can sense the change in the air, the slight shift in the wind, you're better prepared, not necessarily to stop the rain, but to find your umbrella, to understand what's happening with a sense of gentle preparedness rather than being caught off guard. You might notice as you become more attuned that these first signals are often quite neutral. That first clench in your jaw isn't inherently angry, it's just tension. That fleeting thought of "that's not fair" isn't a declaration of war, it's just an observation, a momentary judgment. It's what happens next, how we interpret and react to these initial signals that often shapes the trajectory of the emotion. By catching anger at its pebble in the pond stage, at that first faint ripple, you create a precious space. A space where you can breathe. A space where you can choose. A space where understanding can begin to blossom. This journey of untangling emotions isn't about eliminating anger, because anger, as we'll explore, can carry important messages. It's about understanding its language, starting with its very first softest utterances. This noticing, this gentle attention is an act of profound self-kindness. It's a way of saying to yourself, "I'm here. I'm listening to even the quietest parts of my experience." And there's a light, hopeful perspective in that, isn't there? The simple act of becoming a better listener to yourself can transform your relationship not just with anger, but with your entire inner world. You begin to see that even this powerful emotion has a gentle side, a subtle approach. If only you are willing to slow down and notice its quiet arrival. And as you begin to tune into those first subtle whispers of anger, that initial tightening in your chest with the fleeting thought we touched upon, you might also notice another layer, a kind of resistance, or perhaps a faint sense of unease about acknowledging the anger itself. It's almost as if alongside anger's arrival, another presence enters the room of your mind, a subtle censor, a quiet judge. This is where we encounter what we might call the societal shadow surrounding anger, the common misperceptions and often unspoken rules that can make us instinctively want to hide this emotion from others and even from ourselves. Think about it for a moment. How often have you heard anger described in purely negative terms, as something destructive, something to be controlled, conquered, or eliminated? We see it portrayed in dramatic outbursts on television or in films, often leading to regrettable consequences. Online, there can be a subtle pressure to always present a positive front, a curated version of ourselves where anger doesn't quite fit the aesthetic. It's no wonder then that when you feel those first stirrings we spoke of in our last moments together, your immediate, almost unconscious reaction might be to push it down, to turn away from it. This response is so deeply ingrained for many of us, a learned reflex shaped by years of subtle and not so subtle messaging. Many of us grow up absorbing these societal scripts about anger without even realizing it. Perhaps in your family, anger was the emotion that was never openly expressed, the one that caused discomfort or silence. Or maybe you only saw it expressed in ways that felt overwhelming or frightening, leading you to associate anger with a loss of control or with pain. Schools, workplaces, even friendships can have unwritten codes about what's considered an acceptable display of emotion, and anger often falls into the unacceptable category, especially if it's not presented in a very particular, often subdued way. It's incredibly common to have internalized these ideas, and it's a testament to your adaptability that you learn to navigate these complex emotional landscapes. This conditioning is the core insight here. Society often teaches us that anger is a problem emotion rather than a natural human experience with a potential purpose. For some, this message is even more specific. Think about how anger is sometimes viewed differently depending on gender. Historically, and even now, men expressing anger might be seen as assertive or strong, while women expressing the same emotion might be labeled as overly emotional, irrational, or even aggressive. Such gendered expectations create a complicated internal conflict if your natural experience of anger doesn't align with these prescribed roles. You might find yourself feeling angry and then feeling guilty or ashamed for feeling that anger, adding a whole extra layer of distress. It's like being caught in a double bind, where the emotion itself is challenging and the societal judgment of it adds further weight. Take a moment now, if you feel ready, to gently reflect on the messages you received about anger growing up. There's no need to dig deeply if it feels uncomfortable, just a soft, curious inquiry. Were there spoken or unspoken rules in your childhood home about how anger should be expressed, or if it should be expressed at all? What did you observe in the adults around you? What did you learn from your peers, from media, from your early experiences in the world about this powerful emotion? Remembering these influences isn't about blame. It's about understanding, about seeing the invisible threads that may have shaped your current relationship with anger. Be kind to yourself as you consider this. We are all products of our environments in many ways. When we are constantly told, directly or indirectly, that anger is bad or dangerous, we learn to fear it in ourselves. We might develop sophisticated strategies for suppressing it. Perhaps you become a master of distraction, quickly shifting your attention when you feel its approach. Or maybe you rationalize it away, telling yourself it's not a big deal. You're overreacting. Some of us turn it inward, transforming that fiery energy into self-criticism or a heavy sadness. These are all understandable coping mechanisms developed to help you feel safe and accepted in a world that often misunderstands this vital emotion. The only challenge is that when we consistently suppress or divert anger, we miss the opportunity to understand what it's trying to tell us as we began to explore. Those delicate initial signals we practice noticing, they get buried under the weight of these societal shoulds and shouldn'ts. It's a gentle act of rebellion in a way to decide to look at anger differently, to peer into these societal shadows and question the stories you've been told. It's a reassurance to know that you are not alone in this experience. So many of us are navigating these confusing messages. The very act of recognizing these external influences can begin to loosen their grip on you. You start to see that your discomfort with anger might not be entirely of your own making, but rather a reflection of a collective unease. This understanding can be incredibly freeing. And there's a hopeful perspective here too. By becoming aware of these societal shadows, you create the possibility of choosing a different path. You can start to differentiate between the raw, authentic emotion of anger that arises within you and the layers of judgment or fear that society may have draped over it. It's like cleaning a dusty window pane. The more you clear away the societal grime, the more clearly you can see the actual landscape of your inner world. This clarity allows you to approach your anger not with automatic suppression, but with a gentle curiosity, a willingness to listen for that message we're seeking. It means that when you notice that first tightening, that initial whisper, you might feel a little less inclined to immediately push it away and a little more open to simply observing it, allowing it to be there just for a moment without judgment. This is a profound shift, a quiet reclaiming of your own emotional experience. As you begin to reclaim your own emotional experience, creating that space we talked about, free from some of those societal shadows that can cloud our perception, you might start to notice something fascinating about anger. You see, having gently acknowledged its arrival, those first whispers we explored, and having considered why you might have been hesitant to meet it, you're now in a place where you can look a little closer, a little deeper. And what you may find is that anger, this powerful and often loud emotion, is not always the primary feeling at play. Frequently, it's more like a protective covering, a strong outer layer for other, more tender emotions that lie hidden just beneath its surface. Imagine an iceberg. The part you see above the water, the visible tip, that can be like anger, noticeable, distinct, sometimes formidable. But the vast majority of the iceberg, the immense mass that gives it its true weight and substance, lies unseen beneath the waves. So often, with anger, those hidden depths are filled with other feelings, perhaps sadness, or a deep sense of hurt, maybe fear, or even shame and vulnerability. This is a key insight. Anger often acts as a secondary emotion. It rushes in, sometimes with great force, to cover up these primary feelings that might make you feel too exposed or too raw in the world. That, as we discussed, isn't always welcoming of open vulnerability. Think about a time you felt a surge of anger. Perhaps someone said something that felt critical or dismissive. The anger might have flared up quickly, a sharp retort on your lips, a heat in your chest. But if you were to gently pause, right in that heated moment, and ask yourself with genuine, soft curiosity, what else am I feeling right now truly? You might discover a sting of hurt from the words, a pang of sadness at feeling misunderstood, perhaps a knot of fear about not being good enough or being rejected. It's a very human tendency for anger to rush in and protect these soft and more tender feelings. Many of us experience this without even realizing it. It's as if anger steps forward like a fierce guardian, shielding these more delicate parts of you from further pain. This doesn't mean the anger isn't real or valid. It absolutely is. But its message might be more complex than it first appears. It might not just be saying this situation is wrong. It might also be whispering through its fiery breath, I'm feeling hurt here, or I'm scared right now, or I feel so unseen. Learning to listen for these quieter underlying messages is like learning to understand a new language, the nuanced dialect of your own heart. Let's try a gentle reflection only if it feels comfortable and safe for you. Thinking about a recent time you felt angry, or perhaps a recurring situation that tends to spark irritation or frustration in you, allow yourself to gently wonder, if anger wasn't the main feeling or the only feeling, what other, perhaps softer or more vulnerable, emotion might have been present underneath it all? You don't need to force an answer or analyze it too much. Just create a little space for the question to breathe. Perhaps you felt a sense of disappointment just before the anger flared. Or maybe a wave of helplessness, or a touch of loneliness. Just notice with kindness whatever arises, or even if nothing specific comes to mind right now. This is a gentle exploration, not an interrogation. It takes a good deal of courage and self-compassion to even consider these hidden feelings. After all, as we explore in our last section, many of those societal shadows teach us to be wary of vulnerability. We learn to put on a brave face to appear strong and unaffected. Anger can sometimes feel like a more powerful, more acceptable mask to wear than, say, overt sadness or fear. If you were taught that crying is a sign of weakness or that being scared is something to be ashamed of, then anger might have become your go-to emotion when those underlying feelings were triggered. It's an understandable adaptation. You learn to protect yourself in the best way you knew how. And you know, it's really quite common in everyday life. You might see someone snap in traffic, their face contorted with rage, and it's easy to just label them as an angry person. But underneath that outburst, there might be immense stress from work, worry about family, or a deep feeling of being overwhelmed and out of control. Their anger, while perhaps not expressed skillfully, is the visible tip of a much larger, unseen emotional iceberg. Similarly, if you find yourself getting uncharacteristically irritable with loved ones, it might be worth asking, with that gentle curiosity we're cultivating, if there's an underlying current of exhaustion, or perhaps a feeling of being unappreciated or disconnected that the anger is inadvertently trying to signal. Recognizing anger as a potential messenger for these deeper feelings is a truly hopeful step. It moves you away from simply trying to manage or get rid of your anger and towards a more compassionate and insightful relationship with it. When you start to ask, what might this anger be protecting? What softer feeling might be underneath? You open a doorway to profound self-understanding. You begin to see that your emotional world has incredible depth and richness, and that even challenging emotions like anger are part of that intricate, beautiful tapestry. This understanding doesn't necessarily make the anger disappear instantly, but it changes your relationship to it. It becomes less of an enemy to be fought, and more of a complex signal to be deciphered with gentle care. And in that deciphering, you often find a path to what truly needs healing or attention within you. And as you continue this gentle deciphering of anger's messages, peeling back the layers to glimpse those hidden feelings we spoke of, you begin to discover something truly empowering. You start to see that anger in its essence often isn't just a reaction to hurt or fear, but can also be a powerful instinctual guardian. It's like an ancient, loyal protector whose job is to alert you when something precious is threatened. And very often, that precious something is your sense of self, your personal boundaries, or your most fundamental needs. This is a profound shift in perspective. Anger not as a foe, but as a vigilant signal. Imagine your personal space, not just the physical space around you, but your emotional and mental territory. This is where your values live, your right to be treated with respect, your need for safety and autonomy. These are your boundaries, and anger often acts like a highly sensitive alarm system for this territory. When someone oversteps, disregards your feelings consistently, or behaves in a way that compromises your well-being or deeply held principles, that alarm, your anger, can start to sound. Those first whispers of irritation we explored in our first moments together, they can be the earliest warning from your guardian that a boundary is being approached or gently nudged. This is the core insight for us to explore together now. Anger frequently arises to signal that a personal boundary has been crossed or that an essential need is going unmet. Think about those essential needs we all share as human beings. The need for safety, both physical and emotional. The need for respect and to be seen and heard. The need for connection, but also for autonomy and the freedom to make our own choices. The need for fairness and justice. When these deep-seated needs are ignored, dismissed, or actively thwarted, your inner guardian anger often steps forward to say, hold on, something isn't right here. This needs attention. It's a deeply ingrained human response for anger to surface when our sense of self or safety feels compromised. It doesn't mean you have to act on the anger in an aggressive way, but its presence is information. For example, you might feel a flash of anger when someone repeatedly interrupts you while you're speaking. Beneath that flash, as we discussed in our last section, might be feelings of frustration or disrespect. But the anger itself is also signaling my need to be heard, to have my voice valued, is not being met here. My boundary around respectful communication is being crossed. Consider a gentle reflection if you feel open to it. Bring to mind a situation, perhaps from the not-too-distant past, where you felt anger, irritation, or even just a strong sense of defensiveness rising within you. Holding that situation gently in your awareness, can you now, with a sense of quiet curiosity, explore whether a personal boundary was being tested or crossed? Was there an unspoken rule of yours about how you expect to be treated that was violated? Or looking even deeper, can you identify a deep-seated need within you, perhaps for recognition, for consideration, for emotional safety, or for your efforts to be acknowledged, felt ignored or threatened in that moment? Take your time with this. These connections aren't always immediately obvious, especially if we're not used to thinking in terms of our own needs and boundaries. Sometimes those societal shadows we talked about earlier can make it difficult to even recognize that we have legitimate boundaries and needs, let alone feel entitled to protect them. You might have been taught that it's selfish to assert your needs, or that you should always be accommodating, even at your own expense. If so, when anger arises to signal a boundary violation, you might feel confused or guilty, mistaking the messenger for the problem. But this guardian aspect of anger is so vital. Without it, we might remain in situations that are harmful or diminishing to our spirit, unaware that we even have the option to protect ourselves or advocate for what we require. Learning to identify your boundaries and to understand what you truly need to feel safe and respected is a journey in itself, and it's one that unfolds with self-compassion and patience. It's a skill, like any other, that develops over time. There will be moments when you recognize the signal of anger too late, or perhaps misinterpret its message. That's perfectly okay. This isn't about achieving some sort of perfect emotional radar overnight. It's about a gentle, ongoing commitment to listening more deeply to yourself. When you start to view anger through this lens as a potential guardian, its energy can feel different. Instead of it being this scary, overwhelming force, it can begin to feel more like a source of inner strength, a clarity. It's the part of you that says, I matter, my feelings matter, my well-being matters. And this is an incredibly hopeful perspective, isn't it? It means that anger, so often maligned, can actually be an ally in your journey toward greater self-respect and healthier relationships. It can provide the impetus to make necessary changes, to speak up where you've been silent, or to step away from situations that consistently drain your spirit. This doesn't mean the expression of this anger needs to be loud or aggressive. Sometimes the most powerful way to honor anger's message is through a quiet, firm decision, a clear but gentle statement, or a conscious choice to protect your energy. And as you begin to honor the messages of this inner guardian we've been exploring, making those quiet, firm decisions or conscious choices to protect your energy, you'll find that your body itself is a profound source of wisdom in this journey. It speaks to you constantly, especially when anger is stirring. We touched briefly in our very first moments together on those initial physical whispers, a faint clenching, a subtle warmth. Now, let's deepen that conversation, learning to listen more intently to your body's unique dialogue when anger begins to make its presence known. Your body is often the first to know. Before your thinking mind has fully caught up, before you've labeled a feeling as anger, your physical self is already responding, already processing the experience. This is the essence of the mind-body connection, an intricate, inseparable dance where every emotion has a physical resonance, a signature felt somewhere in the landscape of your being. Learning to read these physical cues is like becoming fluent in a deeply personal, intuitive language. It's your body's way of talking to you about your emotional state, offering direct, unfiltered information. It's so natural for our attention to be drawn outward, away from the body, especially when we're busy or stressed or caught up in the demands of daily life here in Vietnam, or wherever you are in the world. Because of this, many of us are a little out of practice in listening to these internal physical cues. We might only notice a physical sensation when it becomes very loud or painful, like that tension headache that's been building all day from unspoken frustration, or the backache that flares up when you're feeling overwhelmed and resentful. But your body is whispering to you long before it needs to shout. The core insight here is that each of us has a unique physical fingerprint for anger. While there are commonalities like increased heart rate, muscle tension, or a feeling of heat, the specific constellation of sensations, where they manifest, and their intensity will be particular to you. For one person, the first sign of rising irritation might be a distinct tightening in the shoulders, a feeling of carrying a heavy weight. For another, it might be a knot in the stomach, a churning sensation like an uneasy sea. Someone else might notice their hands clenching into fists almost involuntarily, or a subtle buzzing energy in their arms and legs. Take a moment now as you sit or lie comfortably to gently scan your body with your inner attention. Start from the tips of your toes, slowly moving upwards through your feet, your ankles, your calves and shins, your knees, your thighs. Just noticing any sensations without needing to change them. Continue this gentle scan up through your hips, your abdomen, your lower back, your chest, your upper back. Notice your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your fingers. Bring your awareness to your neck, your jaw, your face, your scalp, the very crown of your head. And as you rest in this full body awareness, can you recall or even just softly imagine the subtle physical sensations that tend to accompany your experiences of irritation, frustration, or anger? Where in your body do you typically feel the first stirrings? Is there a particular quality to these sensations? Are they sharp or dull? Hot or cold? Tight or expansive? There's no need to force anything. Just be curious, like a gentle scientist observing a natural phenomenon. You might find, as you practice this kind of embodied listening, that anger has a very specific pathway it travels through your system. Perhaps it starts as that familiar tightness in your jaw you've begun to recognize, then spreads as a warmth up into your temples, and then maybe settles as a heavy pressure in your chest. Or it could be a quick electrical jolt in your solar plexus that then makes your breath become shallow. There is no right or wrong way for anger to feel in your body. Your experience is entirely valid and unique to you. This gentle exploration is about becoming more familiar with your own personal pattern, your body's specific dialect when it comes to this powerful emotion. Remember how we spoke of anger as a guardian, signaling when boundaries are crossed or needs are unmet. Your body is often the frontline sensor for this guardian. It picks up on the subtle cues in your environment or interactions that your conscious mind might initially dismiss. That sudden clenching in your stomach when someone makes a passive-aggressive comment during a work meeting on Zoom, for instance, is your body's immediate visceral reaction. Its way of saying, pay attention, that doesn't feel right here. It's a physical echo of that boundary being nudged. Or consider the way your shoulders might creep up towards your ears when you're in a tense conversation. That's your body physically trying to protect itself, to brace for impact, long before you perhaps consciously acknowledge the emotional threat. This practice of tuning into your body's dialogue offers a truly hopeful perspective. When you can recognize these physical signals early on, when the anger is still just a faint tremor rather than a full-blown earthquake, you have more space, more choice in how you respond. You're not being ambushed by the emotion, you're meeting it at its inception. This early awareness allows you to bring in the other tools we're exploring, to pause, to breathe, to get curious about what hidden feelings might be present, or what boundary or need is calling for your attention. It empowers you to work with the energy of anger, rather than being overwhelmed by it or suppressing it until it erupts. This embodied awareness is a cornerstone of emotional intelligence and a profound act of self-care, allowing you to navigate your inner world with greater wisdom and compassion. Now that you've become more attuned to your body's dialogue, recognizing how it speaks to you through physical sensations when anger is present, we can use this embodied awareness, this wisdom and compassion we are cultivating, to gently unveil the message behind a specific past experience of anger. Think of this as a quiet, reflective detective story, where you are both the detective and the one holding the precious clues. There's no rush, no pressure here, just a soft curiosity guiding you. The core insight underpinning this gentle exercise is that through mindful and compassionate inquiry, by revisiting a past moment of anger not to relive its intensity but to understand its origins and purpose, we can often decode what it was truly trying to tell us. Anger, as we've been exploring, is so often a messenger, and this practice is about learning to read its letters with a kind heart. So, find a comfortable position, perhaps the one you're in right now, and allow your body to soften a little more. Take a slow, easy breath in, and a long, gentle breath out. If it feels right for you, you might allow your eyes to gently close or simply lower your gaze. First, I invite you to bring to mind a specific instance from your past when you felt a wave of anger or irritation. Choose a memory that feels manageable to explore right now, perhaps a relatively mild experience, not something overwhelmingly intense. A small disagreement, a moment of frustration, a flicker of annoyance. Just allow one such memory to surface gently. Hold it lightly in your awareness, like holding a delicate photograph. Now, with that memory in mind, begin to recall the situation itself. Without getting lost in the story, just notice the broad strokes. Where were you? Who were you with, if anyone? What was happening around you? What could you see? What sounds were present? Just observing the external context like a quiet witness. Next, let's bring in that awareness of your body's dialogue we were just practicing. Remembering that specific moment, can you gently recall how your body felt? Did you notice any of those physical sensations we talked about? Perhaps a tightening in your jaw, a heat in your chest, a clenching in your stomach, or a restlessness in your limbs. Just observe these remembered sensations with that same gentle curiosity, not judging them, simply acknowledging how your body was responding then. And what about your thoughts in that moment? Can you remember any specific thoughts that were running through your mind as the anger or irritation began to surface or build? Were there any judgments, assumptions, or interpretations you were making about the situation, about yourself, or about others involved? Again, just notice these thoughts as mental events without getting entangled in them. Now, let's go a little deeper. With immense gentleness, remembering what we explored about hidden feelings, can you ask yourself, beneath that surface layer of anger, was there perhaps another, more vulnerable emotion present? Was there a flicker of sadness, a pang of fear, a sting of hurt, or maybe a sense of disappointment or feeling overwhelmed? Allow yourself to be open to whatever you find or don't find. Sometimes these underlying feelings are very subtle. It's perfectly okay if the message isn't crystal clear at first, or if revisiting this feels a little tender. This kind of inner detective work is a practice, not a test. And as you hold these layers of experience, the situation, the physical sensations, the thoughts, the potential hidden feelings, let's bring in the wisdom of anger as a guardian. In that specific situation, can you consider if a personal boundary of yours was being tested or perhaps clearly crossed? Was there an expectation you had, a value that felt important to you, that was being disregarded or compromised? Or was one of your essential needs, perhaps for respect, for understanding, for safety, for appreciation, feeling unmet or threatened? Take a moment to ponder this with kindness. Now, with all this in mind, ask yourself this gentle question. What was this anger in this particular situation trying to protect within me? Or what positive intention, however hidden, might this anger have had for me? Perhaps it was trying to protect your dignity, your energy, your time, or your sense of fairness. Maybe it was trying to alert you to a situation that wasn't aligned with your well-being. See if you can find even a small kernel of protective wisdom within that past anger. This process isn't about condoning unskillful expressions of anger, nor is it about blaming yourself or others. It's about compassionate self-discovery. It's about understanding the why behind the what. Sometimes just understanding a message can bring a sense of release or a shift in perspective about that past event. You might even notice how some of those societal shadows we discussed could have made it harder to see or honor that message at the time. And as a final step in this reflection, you might gently ask, knowing what I now suspect this anger is trying to tell me, what might a more constructive or aligned response have looked like for me in that situation? This isn't to criticize your past self. You did the best you could with the awareness you had then. It's simply to learn for the future, to plant a seed for a different way of responding if a similar situation arises. Take another soft breath. When you feel ready, you can gently let go of the memory, perhaps wiggle your fingers and toes, and bring your awareness back to the present moment, to the world around you, to the sound of my voice. Reassure yourself that this exploration is a brave and kind act. Each time you engage in such a gentle inquiry, you become a little more fluent in the language of your emotions, a little more skilled uncovering the valuable messages they carry, transforming anger from a confusing adversary into an unexpected ally on your path to inner understanding and peace. As you become more fluent in the language of your emotions through such gentle inquiries as we shared in our last reflection, you'll find that anger, this often misunderstood ally, has a remarkable ability to illuminate what truly matters to you at a very deep level. That message you began to uncover, the protective intention behind a past moment of anger. Very often, if you follow its thread, it leads you directly to one or more of your fundamental human needs. It's as if anger and its fierce energy casts a spotlight on precisely what is lacking or feels threatening in your inner or outer world. Think of your core needs as the essential nourishment for your soul, much like food and water are for your body. When these needs are consistently unmet, it's natural for a sense of imbalance, discomfort, and yes, often anger, to arise. This is the central insight we're exploring now. Anger frequently serves as that powerful illuminator, drawing your urgent attention to these vital, unmet needs. It's not just a random outburst. It's a signal, sometimes a very loud one, that something crucial requires your care and attention. We all share a common constellation of these fundamental needs. For instance, there is a profound need for safety and security. This isn't just about physical safety, though that's certainly part of it. It's also about emotional safety, feeling secure enough to be yourself, to express your thoughts and feelings without fear of harsh judgment, ridicule, or retribution. If you find yourself in situations where you feel emotionally unsafe, where your vulnerability is exploited, or you're constantly on edge, anger can rise as that guardian we spoke of, fiercely trying to protect your need for a secure base. That tension in your shoulders, that knot in your stomach, your body's dialogue might be screaming, "I don't feel safe here." Then there's the universal need for respect and dignity. You need to feel that you are seen as valuable, that your thoughts, feelings, and contributions matter. When you experience disrespect, perhaps someone consistently dismisses your ideas, belittles your efforts, or speaks to you in a condescending tone, whether it's in a bustling market here in Vietnam or in a quiet office space across the globe, anger can flare up as a very clear indication that this need is being violated. It's your inner self saying, "I deserve to be treated with consideration and worth." Another crucial set of needs revolves around connection and belonging. We are social creatures, hardwired for connection. We need to feel understood, accepted, and loved for who we are. We need to feel like we belong, that we are part of a tribe, a community, a family, or even a close friendship. When this need for connection is frayed, perhaps you feel isolated, misunderstood, consistently ignored by people you care about, or excluded, anger can sometimes surface as a distorted cry for that connection. It might seem counterintuitive, as anger can push people away, but sometimes it's a sign of the deep pain of unmet belonging, a hidden feeling of loneliness finding a louder, more demanding voice. And equally important is the need for autonomy and agency. The need to feel that you have some control over your own life, that you can make choices that align with your values, that your personal space and time are respected. Think about situations where you feel micromanaged, where your decisions are constantly overridden, or where your personal time is relentlessly encroached upon, perhaps by work demands that bleed into every evening and weekend. The frustration and anger that can build in such circumstances often point directly to this thwarted need for autonomy. It's your spirit saying, "I need room to breathe, to choose, to be self-directed." It's profoundly human to experience anger when our core needs are dismissed or unfulfilled. This is a universal aspect of our emotional landscape, nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, recognizing this connection can be incredibly validating. It helps you understand that your anger isn't just a mood or character flaw, but a meaningful response to a legitimate deficit in your well-being. Here's a gentle, reflective invitation for you. The next time you feel that familiar spark of anger or irritation, even a mild wave of it, try to pause for just a moment if you can. Take a soft breath, and then gently ask yourself, which of my important needs feels unmet or threatened right now? Is it my need for safety? For respect? For being heard or understood? Is it my need for connection, or perhaps for autonomy and space? Is it a need for fairness, or to feel competent and capable? Just let the question hover in your awareness without forcing an immediate answer. Sometimes the clarity comes a little later, upon reflection. Learning to identify your specific unmet needs, especially in the heat of an emotional moment, is a skill that develops with practice. Be patient and compassionate with yourself. It's okay if it feels new or challenging at first. Many of us weren't explicitly taught to think in terms of our needs. Often, those societal shadows encouraged us to focus more on the needs of others or to dismiss our own as unimportant. But there's such a hopeful perspective in this exploration. When you start to see your anger through the lens of unmet needs, it transforms from a disruptive force into an invaluable inner compass. It guides you, pointing you towards what requires healing, attention, or action in your life. If your anger is signaling an unmet need for respect in a particular relationship, for instance, that information can empower you to set clear boundaries or to communicate your needs more directly, rather than letting resentment fester. If it's highlighting a need for more connection, it might gently nudge you to reach out, to seek more meaningful interactions. This understanding allows you to address the root cause of your anger, not just its surface symptoms, leading to more profound and lasting peace. As you continue to connect your anger with those vital unmet needs we explored, following its illuminating beam to the heart of what requires your attention, you might also begin to sense that some of these needs and your reactions when they go unmet carry a certain familiar resonance, a faint echo from your past. This is where we can softly and with great care consider how your earlier life experiences might offer a gentle nudge, subtly influencing your current relationship with anger. This isn't about digging for old pain, but about tenderly acknowledging how the threads of your history are woven into the tapestry of your present moment. The core insight here is that our early environments, the family dynamics we grew up with, the ways anger was expressed or not expressed by those around us, the cultural messages we absorb, and any significant past hurts or unresolved experiences can lay down deep patterns and sensitivities within us. These experiences can shape how quickly we become angry, what specifically triggers our anger, and how we tend to express or suppress it as adults. It's like the past leaves subtle imprints on our emotional landscape, and understanding these can bring so much clarity. It's a natural part of being human that our past experiences weave themselves into the fabric of our present emotional responses. We all carry these subtle echoes within us. For instance, if you grew up in a household where anger was expressed in loud, frightening ways, you might find that even mild conflict or raised voices in your adult life trigger a disproportionate sense of fear or a powerful urge to withdraw. Perhaps with your own anger simmering beneath that fear, a silent protest against re-experiencing that old overwhelm. Conversely, if anger was heavily suppressed in your childhood home, seen as something entirely unacceptable, you might struggle to acknowledge or express your own anger now, perhaps feeling guilty or confused when it naturally arises, or it might burst out unexpectedly when it's been held down for too long. Think about those needs we just discussed for safety, respect, connection, autonomy. Your early experiences may have taught you particular lessons about these needs. Perhaps you learned that it wasn't safe to express your need for autonomy, and any attempts to do so were met with disapproval or anger from caregivers. As an adult then, situations where your autonomy feels even slightly threatened might trigger a surprisingly intense wave of anger, as that old unmet need and the frustration around it gets reactivated. It's as if a contemporary situation inadvertently presses on an old, tender bruise. Here's a gentle, reflective invitation, and please approach this with the utmost kindness and self-compassion, only going as far as feels comfortable and safe for you. Without needing to delve into anything distressing or overwhelming, just allow yourself to softly wonder, are there any familiar patterns in how you experience or react to anger that might echo experiences or dynamics from your earlier life? For example, do certain types of comments or situations reliably spark a strong reaction in you, perhaps more so than they seem to warrant on the surface? And if so, is there a faint whisper of an older, perhaps unhealed, hurt or frustration connected to that? You don't need to have all the answers or any answers right now. It's just about opening a gentle space for curiosity. It is so important to remember as you consider this that this exploration is not about assigning blame to anyone in your past, nor is it about getting stuck in old stories. It's about understanding with compassion how those earlier chapters might still be gently nudging your present experience. It's about recognizing that your inner guardian, your anger, might be particularly vigilant in certain areas because of past threats or vulnerabilities. Those societal shadows we spoke of earlier, they often cast their first shapes in our childhood homes or communities, influencing our beliefs about ourselves and our emotions long before we are even consciously aware of it. Sometimes, the anger we feel in the present moment is not just about the current situation. It can be amplified by what psychologists sometimes call emotional baggage, old, unresolved feelings from the past that get triggered and layered onto the present experience. A seemingly minor comment from a friend or colleague might unleash a torrent of anger, not just because of the comment itself, but because it unconsciously reminds you of a time you felt deeply criticized, invalidated, or unseen as a child. The current anger becomes a vehicle for that older, unexpressed pain. If you find that reflecting on these past influences brings up very strong or distressing emotions or memories, please be incredibly gentle with yourself. It is a sign of strength, not weakness, to acknowledge when you might need support. Speaking with a trusted friend, a family member, or particularly a qualified therapist or counselor can provide a safe and supportive space to explore these deeper waters if you choose to. You don't have to navigate these tender areas alone, but there is a truly hopeful perspective in gently acknowledging these nudges from the past. When you begin to recognize how old patterns or sensitivities might be influencing your current reactions, their unconscious power over you can start to lessen. You begin to differentiate, this part of my anger is about what's happening right now, and perhaps this other part, this extra intensity, is an echo from before. This awareness creates space. It gives you more choice. You might still feel the anger, but you're less likely to be completely swept away by it, less likely to react purely from that old wounded place. You can meet your present experiences with a little more clarity and your past with a little more compassion, understanding that you are continually learning and growing beyond those early imprints. This is a profound step towards emotional freedom. As you take those profound steps towards emotional freedom, beginning to understand the echoes from your past and how they might gently nudge your present experience of anger, you cultivate a precious space for a new kind of inner response to emerge. This response is rooted in kindness, a gentle warmth directed towards yourself, especially when you are struggling. We're talking about self-compassion, a way of meeting your anger, and indeed all your emotions, not with criticism or judgment, but with the same tenderness and understanding you might offer a beloved friend. This practice can truly transform your internal landscape. The core insight here is simple yet deeply powerful. Self-compassion means treating yourself kindly when you are having a difficult time, when you fail, or when you feel inadequate, rather than berating yourself or drowning in self-criticism. When it comes to anger, it means acknowledging that you are feeling this strong, often uncomfortable, emotion, and recognizing that this is a part of being human, especially when those unmet needs or past sensitivities we've explored are triggered. It's about shifting from an inner adversary to an inner ally. It's so easy to fall into self-criticism when we feel anger, especially if we've been taught it's a bad emotion, as those societal shadows often suggest, or if past experiences have left us feeling ashamed of our anger. You might hear that familiar inner voice saying, I shouldn't be feeling this, or I'm a bad person for getting so angry, or I'm overreacting again. This internal critic only adds another layer of suffering on top of the anger itself. Self-compassion offers a different voice, a softer, more understanding presence. It whispers, this is hard right now. It's okay to feel this. I am here for you. Think about how you naturally respond when a close friend comes to you upset or angry about something. You probably wouldn't tell them they're terrible for feeling that way. More likely, you'd listen with an open heart, offer comfort, validate their feelings. I can see why you'd feel that way and perhaps gently help them explore what's going on. Self-compassion is simply about turning that same kind, supportive attention inward. It involves three key elements. Firstly, mindfulness, acknowledging your feelings without judgment, just noticing anger is here. Secondly, common humanity, recognizing that everyone experiences difficult emotions like anger. You are not alone in this. And thirdly, self-kindness, actively comforting and soothing yourself. Here's a gentle invitation, a small experiment to try the next time you notice anger or irritation arising, whether it's a tiny flicker or a more significant wave. As you become aware of the anger, perhaps you notice those physical sensations in your body we discussed, or the thoughts that accompany it. Try to mentally step back for just a moment. And in that pause, ask yourself, if my dearest friend, someone I truly care about, were feeling this exact same way right now, and they described these sensations and thoughts to me, how would I respond to them? What words of kindness, understanding, or support would I offer? Take a moment to really imagine that. Then see if you can offer that same general understanding, those same kind words inwardly to yourself. You might even place a hand gently on your heart or another comforting place on your body as you do this, a physical gesture of self-soothing. This isn't about making excuses for any unskillful actions that might arise from anger, nor is it about wallowing in the emotion. Self-compassion isn't self-pity or self-indulgence. Rather, it's about creating a supportive inner environment from which you can learn, grow, and make more conscious choices. When you meet your anger with this internal kindness, you reduce the inner conflict. You're no longer fighting a war on two fronts, against the external situation that triggered the anger and against yourself for feeling angry. This frees up so much energy. Remember those hidden feelings we explored, the hurt or fear that often lies beneath anger? Self-compassion creates a safe inner space for these more vulnerable emotions to surface and be acknowledged without judgment. It allows you to be with your own pain in a comforting way. And when you're considering those gentle nudges from the past, self-compassion is like a soothing balm for those old sensitivities. Instead of criticizing yourself for having these tender spots, you can approach them with understanding, this is an old wound and it needs gentle care. This practice of offering yourself kindness within can feel a little unfamiliar at first, especially if you're more accustomed to a harsh inner critic. That's perfectly okay. Like any new skill, it takes practice and patience. You might start small, just by noticing your self-critical thoughts around anger and intentionally offering a single kind thought as an alternative. Even that is a beautiful beginning. And the hopeful perspective here is truly transformative. As you cultivate self-compassion, your entire inner world begins to feel like a safer, more nurturing place. This doesn't mean you'll never feel anger again. It's a natural human emotion with important messages, as we've seen. But the experience of anger can change. It might arise less frequently or with less intensity because you're not adding that extra layer of self-attack. And when it does arise, you'll be better equipped to meet it with wisdom and grace, using its energy constructively rather than turning it inward or outward in harmful ways. You become your own best source of comfort and strength, a true kindness within. As you cultivate that true kindness within, becoming your own source of comfort and strength when anger arises, you begin to discover that this inner compassion creates the perfect conditions for another profoundly transformative practice, the sacred pause. This isn't a complicated technique. It's the simple yet incredibly powerful act of creating a momentary space between the spark of anger and your response to it. It's in this tiny gap, this precious sliver of time, that you reclaim your power to choose, allowing that inner wisdom and kindness to guide you. The core insight here is that the immediate, unthinking reaction to an anger trigger is often a deeply ingrained habit, a well-worn neural pathway. The sacred pause acts like a gentle interruption of this automaticity. By consciously pausing, even for just a few seconds, you step off that habitual track. You create a space for awareness to bloom, a moment to breathe, to notice what's happening within you and around you before you speak or act. This tiny island of calm in the midst of an emotional storm allows you to move from being driven by your anger to consciously responding to your anger in the situation at hand. It's incredibly easy to get caught in the momentum of anger and react impulsively. Learning to pause is like developing a new muscle. It takes practice and intention, and it's okay if it feels challenging at first. Think about those times when you instantly fired off an angry email, only to regret it moments later, or snapped a harsh word that you wished you could take back. These are often the fruits of reacting without that crucial pause. The world moves so fast, especially with digital communication here in Vietnam or anywhere else, and the pressure to respond instantly can be immense. But the sacred pause is your quiet rebellion against that urgency, your commitment to a more considered, more compassionate way of being. Remember those very first signals of anger's arrival we explored? That subtle tightening in your chest, the quickening of your breath, the fleeting critical thought? These are your cues. The moment you notice one of these early signs, that is your invitation to pause. It doesn't have to be a long, dramatic stop. It can be as simple as taking one conscious breath. Just one deliberate inhalation and exhalation before you say or do anything else. In that single breath, you create a space. Let's try a small thought exercise, or rather, a gentle intention to carry with you. The next time you feel that initial stirring of anger, that first physical cue from your body's dialogue, or that initial mental spark, can you experiment with taking just one conscious breath before you speak or act? Just one. As you breathe in, you might silently say to yourself, pause. As you breathe out, you might silently say, calm. Or simply feel the air moving in and out of your body. Notice what happens in that tiny sliver of time. Does it change anything? Does it give you a moment to connect with that kindness within we just spoke about? This pause is sacred because it's a moment where you honor yourself. You honor your emotions by noticing them, but you also honor your capacity for wisdom and choice by not letting those emotions dictate your actions blindly. It's a space where you can quickly, almost instinctively, ask some of those gentle questions we've been practicing. What am I truly feeling underneath this anger? remembering our exploration of hidden feelings. Is a boundary being crossed here, or an important need going unmet? Recalling anger as that guardian signal illuminating your needs. Is this an old pattern? A gentle nudge from the past being activated? The pause gives these inquiries a chance to surface, however fleetingly. This practice isn't about suppressing your anger or pretending it doesn't exist. Suppression often just bottles up the emotion, allowing it to fester or explode later. The pause is different. It's about creating space around the anger so you can see it more clearly, feel it without being consumed by it, and then choose a response that is aligned with your deeper values and intentions. You are not ignoring the fire. You are simply stepping back a little so you don't get burned and can decide how best to tend to it. There's a deep reassurance in knowing that even the smallest pause can make a significant difference. Sometimes that single breath is enough to prevent a harsh word. Sometimes a few moments of silence are enough to see the situation from a slightly different perspective. And it's okay if you forget to pause, or if it feels impossible in certain high-intensity moments. This is a practice, not a performance. Each time you do remember to pause, however imperfectly, you are strengthening that muscle of conscious response. The hopeful perspective here is that the sacred pause is an incredibly empowering tool that is always available to you. It costs nothing. It requires no special equipment. It can be practiced anywhere, anytime. And with each pause, you put yourself back in the driver's seat of your emotional life. You move from being a reactor to a responder. This not only leads to more constructive interactions with others and fewer regrets, but it also cultivates a profound sense of inner peace and self-mastery. You begin to trust your ability to navigate even strong emotions with grace and wisdom, knowing that you always have access to that sacred internal space of calm. As you become more adept at finding that sacred internal space of calm through the pause, you gain not only grace and wisdom in navigating your inner world, but also a precious opportunity to choose how you interact with the outer world, especially when anger's message needs to be voiced. After you've paused, after you've connected with that kindness within and perhaps gained a glimpse of the unmet need or threatened boundary your anger is signaling, the next gentle step can be to consider how to communicate this insight constructively. This isn't about unleashing the raw force of anger, but about mindfully, gently, and clearly expressing its underlying message. The core insight here is that constructive communication, particularly when anger is involved, thrives on clarity about our own feelings and needs, expressed without blame or accusation. It's about shifting from pointing fingers to opening a dialogue. One of the most well-known and helpful frameworks for this is using I statements, which allow you to own your experience and express it in a way that is less likely to make the other person feel defensive. This approach helps transform a potential confrontation into an invitation for understanding. It can feel vulnerable and unfamiliar to express our needs and feelings so directly, especially if we're used to either suppressing anger until it leaks out in passive-aggressive ways, or letting it explode in a burst of frustration. Perhaps those societal shadows we talked about, or experiences from your past, taught you that it wasn't safe or acceptable to speak your truth so openly. Learning this gentle way of voicing is a courageous journey, a path of learning to honor your own experience while still respecting others. And while communication styles can vary wonderfully across cultures, from the vibrant streets of Hanoi to quiet towns elsewhere, the underlying principles of respect and clear, kind articulation have a universal resonance. True harmony in the long run often blossoms from addressing needs gently, rather than letting unspoken resentments build. So what does this gentle voicing look like in practice? It often starts with clearly identifying your feeling. Instead of saying, "You always make me so angry," which is accusatory, you might start with, "I feel frustrated," or "I feel hurt," or "I feel concerned." This owns the feeling as yours. Then you describe the specific observable behavior that is contributing to your feeling without judgment or exaggeration. For example, when I notice that dishes are left in the sink after we've agreed to share that task. This is factual and specific, rather than a generalized attack like, "You're so lazy and never help out." Following that, you can gently express the unmet need or the boundary that was crossed. This is where the insights from our previous explorations become so valuable. You might say, "Because my need for a shared sense of responsibility in a tidy space isn't being met." Or "Because I value our agreements and it makes me feel like my contributions aren't respected." Finally, if appropriate, you can make a clear, positive, and respectful request for what you would like to see happen differently. Not a demand, but an invitation. Would you be willing to make sure the dishes are done on your days? Or, I would really appreciate it if we could stick to our agreement about household tasks. Let's try a small reflective exercise. Think of a situation, perhaps a recurring one or something you anticipate, where you might feel the need to express a boundary or an unmet need that is currently or could potentially be a source of anger or irritation for you. Now very gently, consider how you could phrase your message using this kind of structure. You might start with an I feel statement identifying your emotion. Then add a when phrase describing the specific neutral behavior or situation. Follow that with a because my need for, or because I value, stating your underlying need or value. And finally, if it fits, what I would appreciate is, or would you be willing to? Making a gentle request, just play with the words in your mind, imagining yourself saying them calmly and kindly. How does it feel to frame it this way compared to how you might have reacted in the past? Remember, this mindful way of voicing is not about guaranteeing that you will always get what you want or that the other person will always respond perfectly. People are complex, and communication is a dance. However, the primary aim here is to express your truth, your needs, your boundaries authentically and respectfully. Doing so, regardless of the outcome, deepens your own self-respect and integrity. You are honoring your anger's message and taking responsibility for your part in the dynamic. And often, much more often than we might expect, this gentle, clear approach is met with more understanding and willingness to cooperate than an aggressive or accusatory one. This isn't about becoming a communication robot mechanically reciting formulas. It's about internalizing the principles of respect, clarity, and ownership of your feelings and needs, so that your unique voice can express these things authentically. It takes that self-compassion we spoke of to embark on this because it can feel risky to be so open. It takes the wisdom from your sacred pause to choose your words carefully. And it takes courage. But the hopeful perspective is that as you practice this gentle voicing, you are sowing seeds for healthier, more authentic, and more connected relationships. You are teaching others how you wish to be treated, not through anger and demands, but through clear, kind self-expression. You are also modeling a way of communicating that invites others to do the same. This can transform misunderstandings into moments of connection and conflicts into opportunities for deeper understanding and mutual respect. It's a skill that can bring so much more peace, not only to your interactions with others, but also to your own heart. As you practice voicing your anger's message gently and clearly, bringing more peace to your interactions and to your own heart, you might also begin to notice something remarkable about the anger itself, the sheer energy it carries. Anger is often described as a hot emotion, a fiery feeling, and this isn't just metaphorical. It genuinely mobilizes a significant amount of physiological and psychological energy within you. The wonderful insight we're exploring now is that this potent fire, once its message is understood and you've taken that sacred pause, doesn't just have to dissipate or be suppressed. It can be mindfully channeled, transformed into a powerful fuel for positive change in your life, and sometimes even in the world around you. It's natural to feel a surge of energy with anger. The key is learning to harness this power constructively, which is a skill we can all cultivate with mindful intention. For so long, perhaps, you've seen anger's energy only in its destructive potential, a wildfire raging out of control. But imagine instead a carefully tended fire in a hearth, providing warmth, light, and the energy to cook, to create. Or think of the controlled burn that clears away undergrowth to allow for new, healthier growth. This is the transformative potential we're talking about, taking that raw, intense energy and giving it a constructive purpose. The core insight here is that the energy inherent in anger, when not impulsively discharged or turned inward destructively, can be a profound motivator. Once you've understood its message that a need is unmet, a boundary crossed, an injustice perceived, the energy that accompanies that understanding can propel you into thoughtful action. It can give you the courage to make changes you might otherwise shy away from, the determination to see things through, the passion to stand up for what you believe in. This isn't about acting from a place of raw, unprocessed anger, but rather acting from the clarity and conviction that emerge after you've listened to your anger and allowed its initial intensity to settle through your pause. Think about some of the great positive changes in society. So often they began because someone or a group of people felt a deep sense of anger or injustice about a situation. That fire in the belly we sometimes speak of, Whether it's about social inequalities, environmental concerns we see affecting our beautiful planet, or personal challenges, can be the very spark that ignites sustained effort and meaningful action. Here in Vietnam, as in every corner of the world, there are countless examples of how this passion, when constructively channeled, leads to innovation, advocacy, and the betterment of communities. On a personal level, that same energy can be just as transformative. Consider a situation in your own life right now that sparks feelings of anger, frustration, or perhaps a sense of being stuck. You've paused, you've listened for the hidden feelings, you've identified the unmet need or the boundary that's being challenged. Now, I invite you to gently ask yourself, how could I channel the energy of this feeling into a constructive action, however small? What positive step could this fire help me take? Perhaps the anger you feel about a recurring miscommunication in a relationship, once understood, gives you the energy to initiate that gentle voice we explored in our last section to calmly and clearly express your needs and seek a better way forward. Or maybe the frustration you feel about an inefficient process at work, once you've identified the underlying need for effectiveness or respect for your time, fuels you to research and propose a thoughtful solution. This positive change doesn't always have to be a grand world-altering gesture. It can be deeply personal and equally profound. Setting a firm boundary where one was lacking before and consistently maintaining it is a powerful act of self-care fueled by this transformed fire. Saying no to something that drains your energy or compromises your values, even when it's difficult, is another. Perhaps the energy of your anger, once its message about an unmet need for creative expression is understood, motivates you to finally start that painting, write that story, or learn that musical instrument you've always dreamed of. Anger's energy in this sense becomes creative fuel. It's important to remember that channeling this energy constructively is a mindful process. It requires that self-awareness we've been cultivating, the ability to notice the anger, to pause, to understand its message without being swept away by its initial intensity. Without this mindfulness, anger's fire can indeed be destructive, leading to impulsive actions, harsh words, or resentment. But with mindfulness, with that kind of tension, you become the alchemist, transforming a potentially volatile element into something golden, something that serves your highest good, and perhaps the good of others too. And there's a wonderfully hopeful perspective woven into this. When you learn to transform anger's fire, it ceases to be something you fear or wish to eradicate. Instead, you begin to see it as a vital part of your inner landscape, a source of strength, resilience, and motivation. You realize that this powerful emotion, when met with understanding and guided by wisdom, can help you to live more authentically, more courageously, and more in alignment with your deepest values. It helps you to not just passively endure life's challenges, but to actively engage with them, to shape your reality in ways that are more fulfilling and meaningful. This is the true gift of transforming fire. And as you learn to work with anger's fire, transforming its potent energy into fuel for positive change and constructive action, you also discover another profound gift, the possibility of release. Once anger's message has been truly heard, once its energy has been mindfully channeled, or its wisdom integrated into your choices, there comes a time when you can gently set down its weight. This isn't about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't matter. It's about consciously choosing to release the emotional burden, allowing the anger to naturally dissipate now that its vital work is done, making space for a deeper, more restful peace within your heart. The core insight here is that letting go of anger is an active yet gentle process of unclenching, of releasing your grip on the emotion after it has served its purpose. It's fundamentally different from suppression, which, as we've touched upon, is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It inevitably pops up, often with more force. True release comes from a place of understanding and completion. The anger has delivered its message, perhaps about an unmet need or a crossed boundary. You have listened, you have learned, perhaps you have even voiced it gently or taken some action. Now, like a diligent messenger who has completed their task, the anger can be allowed to depart. It can sometimes be hard to let go of anger, even when we know its message, perhaps because a part of us feels it's still needed for protection or validation, or because the hurt beneath it still feels tender. This is a very common human experience, and releasing is often a gentle, gradual unfolding, not always a sudden switch. Think of it like slowly unloosening a tightly clenched fist, finger by finger, allowing the tension to dissolve at its own pace. You might notice this in your own life. After a really clarifying conversation where you felt truly heard, or after you've taken a decisive step to protect a boundary, there's often a natural sense of relief, a lightness that follows as the anger's energy naturally subsides. Imagine for a moment an instance of anger that you've been carrying. Perhaps it's something from the past, a situation where you felt wronged or hurt, and the anger has lingered like a heavy cloak. If you feel that you've now understood its message, if you've gleaned the wisdom it held for you about your needs, your boundaries, or perhaps those echoes from your past, I invite you to try a gentle visualization. See this anger, this feeling, not as an intrinsic part of you, but as something you've been holding. Maybe it's a heavy stone in your pocket, or that weighty cloak, or a tightly wound ball of energy. Now, in your mind's eye, with great kindness and gratitude for the lessons it brought, can you visualize yourself gently setting it down? Perhaps you place it on the earth to be transformed, or let it float away on a gentle breeze, or see it dissolve into soft light. What would it feel like in your body, in your heart, to release that specific weight, to unburden yourself in this way? There's no need to force it. Just allow the image and the feeling of release to be present, if it feels right for you. This process of letting go is deeply supported by that kindness within, that self-compassion we've been cultivating. It's about giving yourself permission to move on, to not be defined by old hurts or anger. It's understanding that holding on to anger indefinitely often harms you more than anyone else, keeping you tethered to the past and preventing you from fully inhabiting the peace of the present moment. It's like carrying around a heavy backpack full of stones. As we say sometimes here in Vietnam, when speaking of old grievances, it just weighs you down on your journey. You might find that the sacred pause also plays a role here. In those moments of quiet reflection, you can check in with yourself. Is this an anger whose message I still need to listen to? Or is this an old anger, a familiar echo whose work is done and which I can now gently release? This discernment is key. We're not aiming for a state of never feeling anger, but for a state where anger is a transient visitor, delivering its information and then moving on, not taking up permanent residence in your heart. And there's a deep reassurance in knowing that letting go is a process, not always a one-time event. Sometimes, especially with deeper hurts, anger might revisit. An old memory might get triggered, and you feel that familiar flicker. If that happens, you don't need to feel discouraged as if you failed to let go. You can simply greet it with that gentle understanding. Acknowledge its presence. Ah, there you are again. Old friend, old messenger. Listen if there's anything new it needs to tell you, and then with that same kindness, practice releasing it once more. Each time you do this, its hold on you typically lessens. The truly hopeful perspective here is that releasing the burden of old, lingering anger creates so much space within you. It's like clearing out a cluttered room in your house. Suddenly, there's more room for light, for air, for new and more positive emotions to flourish. Feelings like peace, contentment, joy, and compassion, both for yourself and for others. You find your energy is freed up, no longer consumed by replaying old grievances or nursing resentments, but available for engaging more fully and joyfully with your life, right here, right now. This unburdening is a profound act of self-love, a gentle return to your own natural state of ease. As you practice that profound act of self-love, gently unburdening yourself from old angers and returning to your natural state of ease, you begin to cultivate a truly liberating understanding of emotions themselves. You start to see that anger, like all feelings, is not a fixed state or a permanent part of who you are. Instead, it's more like a fluid messenger, a transient visitor that passes through the landscape of your awareness, delivering its information and then eventually moving on. This shift in perspective is key to dismantling any lingering identification with anger as a defining trait. The core insight we're embracing here is the fundamental difference between experiencing an emotion and being that emotion. You are not your anger. You are the vast open awareness in which anger, like the weather, can arise, express itself, and then pass. Just as you wouldn't say I am a cloud when you see a cloud in the sky, or I am a rainstorm during a downpour here in Vietnam, you don't have to say I'm an angry person simply because you experience the emotion of anger. You are the sky, ever present and unchanging, through which all sorts of emotional weather patterns can move. It's very easy to fuse with strong emotions like anger and feel like they define us in the moment, or even that we are an angry person if it arises frequently or intensely. Those societal shadows we discuss can contribute to this. quick to label and categorize. Or perhaps past experiences, those gentle nudges from your history, have created a pattern where anger feels like a more constant companion. But separating the emotion from your core identity is a gentle but profound shift in perspective. It allows you to relate to your anger with more curiosity and less fear. More like an interesting, informative visitor rather than an unwelcome resident. Think about other temporary states. If you have a headache, you say, I have a headache, not I'm a headache. You understand it's a temporary condition, something you are experiencing. We can learn to approach our emotions with the same understanding. Anger is a state, a specific constellation of thoughts, physical sensations, that body dialogue we explored, an energy that arises in response to certain triggers, often linked to those unmet needs or crossed boundaries. It delivers its message, and then, like all states, it is designed to change, to flow, to transform. Here's a gentle practice for you, an invitation to observe this fluidity. The next time you feel anger beginning to stir, after you perhaps take in that sacred pause, notice if you can observe it as a passing wave of energy and information within you, rather than as who you are in that moment. You might silently say to yourself, anger is present right now as a messenger, or I am aware of feelings of anger arising. See if creating this little bit of linguistic space, this subtle shift in how you narrate the experience to yourself, creates a little more emotional distance, a little less identification. Notice if it allows you to watch the anger with a bit more detachment, like watching a river flow by. This doesn't mean you deny the anger or minimize its intensity. The river might be flowing very strongly indeed, but you are on the riverbank, observing its power, its direction, its message, rather than being swept away completely by its current. You acknowledge its presence fully, but you remember that you are more than the river. You are the observer, the awareness that holds the experience. This understanding of anger as a fluid messenger offers such reassurance. Feeling anger, even intensely or frequently at times, doesn't make you a bad person or a permanently angry person. It makes you human. All humans experience anger. It's part of our shared emotional vocabulary, a vital tool for navigating the complexities of life, for protecting what's important, as we've seen. When you stop identifying with the anger, you free yourself from the shame or guilt that can so often accompany it, especially if you've been conditioned to see anger as negative. And it also helps in that process of releasing burdens we spoke of. It's much easier to let go of something that you perceive as a temporary visitor than something you believe is an intrinsic part of your very being. If anger is just a messenger, then once the message is received, understood, and perhaps acted upon, you can thank the messenger and allow it to continue on its journey without feeling like a part of you is being diminished or lost. The hopeful perspective here is that viewing anger, and indeed all your emotions, as fluid, transient states allows for immense self-acceptance. You no longer need to struggle against your feelings or fear them as defining you. Instead, you can meet each emotional visitor with curiosity, listen for its unique message, learn from its presence, and then trust in its natural tendency to transform and flow. This fosters a deep sense of inner resilience and peace, knowing that whatever emotional weather you are experiencing, the calm, clear sky of your awareness is always there, steadfast and serene, holding it all with gentle, spacious understanding. And as you rest in that calm, clear sky of your awareness, recognizing anger is just one of the many fluid messengers, one of the many weather patterns that can pass through your being, you begin to see the whole landscape of this journey we've taken together tonight. We've walked a long and gentle path, from noticing anger's first subtle arrival, those almost imperceptible ripples in the pool of your calm, to understanding it not as a fixed part of you, but as a transient, informative visitor. This journey has been about transforming your relationship with anger, moving from potential fear or confusion towards a place of understanding, acceptance, and even alliance. The beautiful culmination of this exploration is the realization that anger, when met with wisdom and compassion, truly can become a valued inner ally, a guide that, paradoxically perhaps, leads you towards deeper inner peace. It's no longer an enemy to be vanquished or a flaw to be hidden. Instead, it's a part of your innate intelligence, a signal to be respected, a source of profound insight and energy. By understanding its nuances, the societal shadows that have often distorted its image, the hidden, more vulnerable feelings it so fiercely protects, its vital role as a guardian of your boundaries and the spotlight for your unmet needs, you reclaim its true purpose. You've learned to listen to your body's dialogue, recognizing the unique physical signature anger creates within you. You've practiced unveiling its specific message in past situations, connecting the dots between the emotion and what truly mattered to you in those moments. You gently considered how the past might still nudge your present experience, and you've discovered the profound healing power of meeting all of this, your anger and your history, with the kindness within, with boundless self-compassion. From that compassionate space, you found the strength of the sacred pause, that momentary sanctuary where choice is born. And from that choice, the possibility of voicing your needs gently, of channeling anger's transformative fire into constructive action, and finally the peaceful release of its burden once its work is done. It's a lifelong journey, this process of understanding and integrating all parts of our emotional selves. Be patient and kind with yourself as you continue to explore your own unique relationship with anger. There will be times when you navigate it with grace and other times when old patterns reemerge. This is all part of the human experience. The aim isn't perfection, but an ever-deepening awareness, a more consistent turning towards yourself with gentle curiosity and unwavering compassion. The core insight we arrive at, as our time together draws to a close, is that embracing anger as an ally means living a more whole, authentic, and integrated life. It means that no part of your emotional experience is off limits or deemed bad. Every feeling has its place, its wisdom. When anger arises, you no longer need to recoil or react impulsively. You have a toolkit of gentle practices, a wealth of understanding, and a compassionate heart to meet it with. You can greet it, listen to it, learn from it, and then when the time is right, let it go. Return into that calm center within you. As our journey together tonight comes towards a gentle close, take a quiet moment now to reflect. Of all the things we've explored about anger, from its first whisper to its potential as a wise ally, what is one key insight, one gentle idea, or one small practice that feels most resonant or helpful for you right now? What one small shift in perspective or approach do you feel you might carry forward into your days and nights like a soft, glowing ember from our shared time? Hold that gently in your awareness. This journey of befriending anger, of seeing it as an integral part of your emotional wisdom, doesn't mean you seek out anger or try to create it. Far from it. It means that when it naturally arises, as it inevitably will in this complex human life, you are prepared. You have the understanding and the inner resources to meet it in a way that leads not to more suffering, but to greater clarity, deeper self-knowledge, and ultimately a more profound and resilient sense of peace. You are becoming your own gentle guide for inner calm, and anger, your once misunderstood companion, now walks beside you as a trusted friend, alerting you, protecting you, and empowering you on your path. And now, as the echoes of our conversation begin to soften and fade into the quietude of your evening, allow your breath to deepen, to slow, to become a gentle rhythm of peace flowing through you. Feel the support of whatever surface you are resting upon, letting your body grow heavy, relaxed, and completely at ease. Any lingering thoughts can drift by like soft clouds in a twilight sky, requiring no attention, no effort. You have journeyed with courage and openness tonight, exploring the often turbulent waters of a powerful emotion, and you have found within it and within yourself a wellspring of wisdom and gentle strength. Carry that knowing with you into your rest, the quiet confidence that you can meet all of your experiences with this same compassionate awareness. May your heart be light, your mind be calm, and your spirit be filled with a deep and abiding sense of peace. Allow the gentle hum of the fan or the soft sounds of the world around you, whether you are here in Vietnam or in some distant, peaceful corner of the earth, to be a lullaby guiding you into a truly restful and restorative sleep. You are safe, you are whole, and all is well.